Okay, guys. So, let's talk about coming out of the closet. Or me coming out of the closet. My experience. Dealing with my sexuality from the get-go in elementary school was particularly difficult because I attended school. I was raised Catholic. I still am Catholic. And I also went to a Catholic school as well. Uh, so uh, from the beginning, it was an uphill struggle. If I really had to trace when I started having uh, my homosexual tendencies. I mean, even as a kid, I had some pretty stereotypical mannerisms, I guess you would say. Uh, I don't know about you guys, but it's very, very difficult watching old home movies of myself because I watch myself, I see some of the things that I did as a kid, and you try to think, oh, you were just kids, I was just a kid back then, I was just so young. But I don't know, it's a little embarrassing, at least for me, to see myself and to see uh, the way I cared of myself, the way I behaved, even as young as 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, and I don't think that I really started having feelings until maybe around 10 or 11 years old, somewhere around that realm. I actually remember the exact moment when I started having some realizations. It was actually because of a sitcom that I like to watch. Now, I don't know how many of you guys knew about this show or remembered this show, but there was a show out in the late 80s, early 90s called Mama's Family with Vicki Lawrence and a number of other people. Hilarious, hilarious show. I really enjoyed it. And in this show, in Mama's Family, there was a character named Bubba Higgins. Yes, Bubba Higgins was his name. Played by Alan Kaiser. Yeah, that's him. So there was this, as a kid, I really, really, really loved and made gratuitous use of our VHS recorder. Because I liked taping cartoons, and I liked taping shows that I enjoyed watching so that I could watch them again over and over again. And so I did that with Mama's Family, especially when they came up with one of my favorite episodes. Was the episode where the whole family goes to Hawaii. Because how many other shows have specials where they go to Hawaii? Full House, Saved by the Bell, Modern Family, The Brady Bunch, Sanford and Sons, The Jeffersons, Cougar Town, Growing Pains, My Wife and Kids. Anyway, there was this one scene during that show where the character Bubba Higgins decided that he wanted to go windsurfing. And he's pulling his windsurfer onto the beach. And for whatever reason, again, I was 10 or 11 years old, I remember continually stopping and rewinding and replaying, and stopping and rewinding and replaying this one scene over and over again. I could not for the life of me, for the longest time, understand why or what about this particular scene was intriguing to me, or why I was so interested in watching those 5 minutes over and over again. It took a long time because you got to understand, I was a very naive and very sheltered person in elementary school, and to a degree I still am today. I didn't even know what homosexuality was. I didn't even know that being gay or gay people existed. Like, I saw my mom, I guess, watching some talk shows where the topic of homosexuality or being gay was brought up, the idea of a man, being attracted to another man. But I never thought, I figured, hey, it's a talk show. I mean, half the things on talk shows are fake anyway. Or, I believe that, at least when I was 10 or 11 years old. I thought that it was, such a thing could not possibly exist. And eventually dawned on me, it took a while, let me tell you, But it eventually dawned on me that the one thing about this scene that particularly intrigued me was Bubba's dripping wet bare chest. Yeah. So, so when I started realizing that I was having these feelings, I immediately was absolutely terrified. Um, I felt very ashamed. I felt there was a lot of self-hatred for a while because, again, I was in a Catholic school and we were not traditionally taught that uh, such a thing was okay. And um, I was already a bit of an outcast in elementary school. I was literally the school nerd. Again, I'm looking back at pictures of myself, and yes, I had the huge classes, but that wasn't the one thing that I thought in particular made me the school nerd. But you know, I had the glasses, I had uh, the hiked up, ridiculously hiked up uh, shorts slash pants, and my knee-high socks literally rolled all the way up to my knees. It was it, I don't know why my parents let me dress myself in elementary school, but definitely had the whole Steve Urkel look going. By far, had the Steve Urkel look going. So I already was a bit of an outcast, and I wasn't really ready to deal with this aspect of myself. You know, I didn't like going to recess. A lot of kids love recess; it's like their favorite part of the day. But I spent most of the time at recess with myself. You know, I was actually a very, very quiet person, much more quiet than I am now. Spent a lot of time just by myself, walking around, because I wasn't really into a lot of things that the guys were doing. I wasn't very athletic. I was horribly, horribly clumsy and uncoordinated, so I didn't really play football or play soccer, which is pretty much what most of the guys did in my school too, which is mostly what the guys did. And so I eventually started hanging out and playing with the girls. And ironically, I mean, that may be awesomely cool when you're in high school or in college, you know, hanging out, the guys hanging out with the girls. But in elementary school, it wasn't so much looked upon as a very positive thing. And I got picked on a lot for that. So I stopped, you know, hanging around with the girls as much and then went back to pretty much hanging out with myself. So, you know, this is all happening while I was figuring things out about my sexuality, and I prayed. I prayed every night. I prayed to God to get rid of this, to take it away, because I really didn't want to deal with it. Um, I was definitely back then what you would call a goody two-shoes. I mean, I always tried to do the right thing. Life as a kid, for me especially, was very, very black and white. You know, I made it a point to not get in trouble, do what I could to make sure that I didn't get in any trouble. You know, and all of a sudden, boom, there's this. I find out something about myself that I am afraid that I can't change, and that I'm afraid that I can't get rid of. And so I repeatedly, repeatedly cried myself to bed, praying my heart out to get rid of this because I didn't want to deal with it. And uh, it, it was still there. I went into high school. By then, the hormones are definitely in full force, and I felt very ashamed. I felt very, very, very ashamed because there would be people in school that I knew personally, people that I considered friends, and the moment I looked at them in a certain way, you know, the moment I would catch myself checking them out, and I was so ashamed. I was so embarrassed. I don't think any of them necessarily knew I was checking them out. I didn't think any of them necessarily, uh, or even if they did knew I was checking them out, I didn't know if necessarily they would have been particularly uncomfortable by it, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter to me that whether they realized or knew or not. Just the fact that I was checking them out at all, or even thinking about my friends in that way at all, freaked me out and appalled me, and I was very, very disgusted in myself. Which is why, to this day, I actually have very, very great difficulty looking at a lot of my friends, straight friends in particular. I have a very difficult time looking, when I talk to my straight friends, actually maintaining eye contact. Especially the ones that I consider to be good-looking guys. Very, very hard time to maintain eye contact with them, um, because there's that guilt about me possibly entertaining the idea of checking them out because I consider them to be good-looking people.